Iryna Zarutska's story is one of resilience, hope, and tragedy. Born in 2002 and raised in Kiev, Ukraine, she experienced first and the turmoil brought on by Russia's invasion of her homeland. Like millions of Ukrainians, she sought refuge from war and destruction, eventually finding her way to the United States with her family in 2022. What followed was a determined attempt to rebuild her life in North Carolina. However, her new beginning came to an abrupt and devastating end in August of 2025. Her death not only shocked the local community, but also sparked national and international debate about public safety, the criminal justice system, and failures in mental health care. Growing up in Ukraine, Iryna developed an early passion for art, design, and creativity. Those who knew her described her as a gifted and passionate artist, someone who not only created, but also generously shared her work with friends and family. She studied art and restoration at Synergy College in Kiev, where she earned her degree. Beyond art, she had a deep love for animals and aspired to build a career in the veterinary field. She was described as happiest when surrounded by loved ones, known for her kindness and generosity, and someone who left a lasting impression on those who met her. Iryna's life in Ukraine was dramatically disrupted in 2022 when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the country. Like many across the nation, she endured frequent air raid sirens, bombings, and the uncertainty of survival. Friends and relatives recalled her living each day under the shadow of possible destruction. In August of 2022, 6 months after the invasion began, Iryna and her family decided to leave Ukraine. She fled with her mother, her sister, and her brother, whilst her father, Stanislav, had to remain behind because of Ukrainian law prohibiting men of fighting age from leaving the country. When Iryna and her family arrived in the United States, they settled in Charlotte, North Carolina. Despite the trauma of displacement, Iryna adapted quickly. Her family described her as remarkably determined and eager to embrace her new surroundings. Within a short time, she became fluent in the English language. She enrolled at Rowan Kabaris Community College, taking courses to improve her English skills and pursue her career ambitions. She continued to nurture her dream of working with animals, often caring for neighbors' pets and considering a path towards becoming a veterinary assistant. To support herself and her family, Iryna took a job at Zebedee's Pizzeria in Charlotte's South End neighborhood, a busy area known for its breweries, shops, and growing residential communities. She also worked on achieving independence, including learning to drive. In the meantime, she relied on public transportation. On the night of August the 22nd, 2025, 23-year-old Iryna finished her shift at Zebedee's Pizzeria and boarded a Lynx Blue Line train near Charlotte's South End. Surveillance footage shows her dressed in her pizzeria work uniform, khaki trousers, and a dark shirt with a hat covering her blonde hair. She sat in an empty row, unaware of the danger lurking behind her. Sitting nearby was 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr., a man with an extensive criminal history and a record of untreated mental illness. For minutes after Iryna boarded, Brown pulled a pocket knife from his hoodie and stabbed her multiple times, including in the neck. Witnesses reported that the attack was sudden and without provocation. Some accounts noted that Brown shouted at least twice, quote, "I got that white girl," as he fled the scene. Accounts of passengers' responses varied. Some froze in shock, while others later tried to help by covering Iryna's wounds or performing CPR until first responders arrived. The conflicting reports highlighted the heightened chaos of the moment and raised questions about public preparedness for such emergencies. The attack itself lasted for less than 60 seconds. Sadly, Iryna died on the train despite desperate efforts to save her life. Brown exited at the next station and was immediately apprehended by police. He was subsequently charged with first-degree murder. Brown's background became a central element in the public discourse following the killing. Court records showed that he had been arrested more than a dozen times in the past, with convictions including robbery with a dangerous weapon, larceny, and breaking and entering. He had spent more than 5 years in prison for armed robbery and was released in 2020. Family members reported that Brown had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, suffered from paranoia, and frequently experienced hallucinations. His mother said she had attempted to have him committed for long-term psychiatric care, but her efforts failed because she was not his legal guardian. His sister recounted that he often believed the government had implanted a chip in him to control his actions. In the years leading up to the stabbing, Brown cycled through the criminal justice system. He was arrested in January of 2025 for misuse of the 911 system after making repeated calls about imagined threats. Despite his erratic behavior, he was released without bail, required only to promise to appear in court. His release and the lack of sustained mental health intervention became a focus of widespread criticism after Iryna's death. The killings sent shockwaves through Charlotte and beyond. Mayor Vi Lyles called the murder senseless and tragic, later describing it as a failure of the court and criminal justice systems. Local council members expressed concern about fragile public trust in public transport and urged both the Charlotte Area Transit System, otherwise known as CATS, and police to review safety measures. CATS confirmed that the train operator followed protocol by holding the train until police arrived on the scene, but critics noted the absence of visible security in the train car where the stabbing occurred. In response, officials pledged to increase fare inspections, improve ticket validation systems, and expand the presence of security personnel on trains and platforms. The release of the surveillance video of the attack in early September of 2025 fueled widespread outrage, especially regarding the lack of intervention by fellow passengers and lack of security measures on board the train. The footage circulated widely on social media, attracting commentary from politicians, commentators, and ordinary citizens. The case also drew discussion around race. Zarutska, a white Ukrainian refugee, was killed by Brown, a black man with a documented history of mental illness and prior convictions. Some commentators argued that the crime did not initially receive the same level of national outrage as other high-profile cases and suggested a racial double standard in public and media responses. Others pointed to systemic failures in mental health care and the criminal justice system as the central factors, cautioning against framing the crime primarily through race. At the national level, the incident quickly became politicized. Conservative politicians and media figures argued that the killing was an example of rising crime in Democrat-led cities and a failure of progressive criminal justice policies. Current U.S. President Donald Trump condemned the attack, calling Brown a madman, and used the case to argue for tougher crime policies, including the deployment of federal troops to cities. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein also called for more police officers and legislation to address staffing shortages in law enforcement. Internationally, the killing received widespread attention, especially in Ukraine, Iryna's homeland, where officials at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said they were in contact with the investigators. Media in the United Kingdom and elsewhere highlighted the case as part of broader concerns about crime in the United States. Brown was charged with first-degree murder in North Carolina State Court and with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system in federal court. The federal charge carries the possibility of the death penalty. A judge ordered Brown to undergo psychiatric evaluation for approximately 60 days. Political leaders, including President Trump and former U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, called for the death penalty in this case, citing Brown's criminal history and the brutality of the attack. He shouldn't have even been on that train, as he did not hold a valid ticket to travel. Iryna's family expressed profound grief in the aftermath of her death. In a statement, they described the 23-year-old's killing as the most horrific way to lose a loved one and called for accountability in public transit security. They urged officials to investigate lapses in safety measures on the Lynx Blue Line and vowed to advocate for reforms to prevent similar tragedies. A candlelit vigil was held in Charlotte on August 31, 2025, honoring Iryna and other victims of transit-related violence. Another vigil was scheduled for September 22 at the East-West Boulevard station to mark 1 month since her death. Iryna's family elected to bury her in the United States, though sadly her father Stanislav was unable to attend her funeral due to wartime restrictions in Ukraine. Neighbors in Charlotte remembered Iryna as a kind young woman who often pet-sat for local families and who brought warmth and light into their community. Her workplace, Zepede's Pizzeria, paid tribute to her, describing her as a tremendous loss and keeping a candle burning in her memory. A GoFundMe page established to support her family raised significant funds, reflecting broad sympathy and solidarity. The stabbing of Iryna Zarutska highlighted systemic issues in American society, including gaps in public transit safety and the handling of repeat offenders, especially with severe mental illness. The case sparked national debates over law and order, mental health care, and the balance between compassion and accountability, while also illustrating how tragic events can become politicized. Iryna's family, friends, and community remember her as a vibrant young woman whose spirit and kindness left an indelible mark. While her story sparked national and international debate, for those who loved her, it remains a deeply personal tragedy. Daughter, sister, and friend who fled war in Ukraine seeking safety in America only to have her life cut short in the very place she had hoped would be safe. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the like button.